Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of the Hilo Stitch podcast. We made it through the whole year. I am your host, Kristen, of Media Pattern Designs, and I'm here to talk to you about what else? Knitting. I will also be talking about knitting pattern design, other goings-on in the fiber arts world, and as usual, there's always a good chance that at some point along the way I'm going to mention Diego Luna. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Special thank you to my Patreon patrons who help keep the podcast up and running. And a special welcome to any new viewers who are checking out the podcast for the first time. So if you don't know me, I'm Kristen Janik. I'm a knitting pattern designer and mom to 2 boys and wife to a very tall man from Peru. We live in the Maryland suburbs of Washington, D.C., and I enjoy baseball, wine, yoga, vegetable gardening, but mainly knitting. So let's start talking about it. All right, I do not know how this happened, but it is almost Christmas. By the time you are watching this, Christmas will just be a couple of short days away. Of course, if you don't celebrate Christmas, that probably doesn't impact you in any way. But if you do celebrate Christmas and you like to give knitted gifts, I am sure that you are racing to the finish line and finishing up gifts. So hopefully the podcast can keep you company while you do that. I have been doing some gift knitting. It is not done as of recording this, might be done by the time you're watching it. But mostly I have been doing kids stuff. Lots and lots of presents, most of which still need to be wrapped. We've baked all kinds of cookies, and this afternoon the kids want to do gingerbread, not because they like to eat gingerbread, but because they like to decorate it. And they also like to recite bits of the gingerbread man story while they do that. And I don't have a huge family to buy for, fortunately, but I do have my dad and my sister. I completely forgot about my dad's girlfriend. So I went out today, Saturday, to get her something that hopefully she will like. Last year I made her a hat, but my dad said he's never seen her wear it. So I'm not going to put the effort in there, I don't think, anymore. I like my knits to go to good use. So, yeah, it has been a very, very busy December, and it's really hard to believe that Christmas is just around the corner. This is my 4th year without my mom at Christmas. I've kind of been missing my mom a little bit more than in the past years. I'm not sure why, since, you know, obviously every year more time goes by. It seems like I should miss her less. I don't think that's really how it works, though. You know, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but my mom always worked hard to make Christmas special for us. And we, of course, carry on some of the traditions. I used mostly my mom's recipes for the Christmas cookies. And I don't know, it's just been a little bit harder this year without my mom. Not sure why. Ever since I was a little girl, our Christmas plans have largely revolved around my dad's church schedule. My dad has always played church music. And he has always, when I was growing up, he had several masses to do on Christmas Eve and usually one on Christmas morning. We all still try to go to church together. We always do church on Christmas Eve, so that Christmas Day, now my dad doesn't usually do a Christmas morning mass, although he is this year. But our tradition, I guess, since I was an older child and maybe a teenager, has been to go to church all together on Christmas Eve so that we can sort of be a little bit more relaxed on Christmas Day. So this year my dad is playing mass at a different church. He's been kind of moving back and forth between churches. Since he moved to Frederick a couple years ago, he hasn't really found a church that quite fits him. So this year he's playing Christmas Mass at actually his girlfriend's church, which is closer to my house than anything. It's not really close to my house either. It's probably a half hour away, but it's closer to my house than anybody else's. So while in the past we have done Christmas Eve at my sister's or my parents and then done Christmas Day at our house, this year we'll be doing Christmas Eve. For some reason we always have seafood on Christmas Eve. I don't know why. So I'll be continuing that tradition. Of course, when I was growing up, my mom, once we were old enough to drive to church, my mom just stopped going to church on Christmas Eve, which meant that she could stay home and cook a really fancy dinner. Since we will be at church sort of in the late afternoon, I think Mass is at 4, I have planned a seafood lasagna, which I can put together ahead of time. And I don't know, it'll be weird doing the opposite day this year, I think. And Christmas Day, we're going to go over to my sister's. Mostly it'll just be the 4 of us, my sister, my dad, and I guess his girlfriend will stop by. So a relatively small Christmas. I do have a lot of family in Maryland. My dad is one of 6 kids, so I have lots of aunts and uncles, but it seems like everybody is kind of doing their own thing on Christmas for the last few years. We don't necessarily all get together on Christmas, which is kind of a bummer, but that's what happens as the kids get older and everybody moves off to do their own things and gets new in-laws and so forth. So of course I'm happy to be spending Christmas with my own kids, and that is just fine for me. I don't really want to drive all over Maryland. Maryland is a small state, but surprisingly it takes quite a bit of time to get to various parts of it. Just because there tends to be a lot of traffic in the city areas. So DC and Baltimore and kind of Annapolis too. So anyway, so weirdly a lot of traffic around Frederick for some reason. It's a small city. I don't know why. So those are our Christmas plans, and for the new year, we have 2 kids and no babysitters as usual. So we will just be celebrating at home. We got some champagne, and maybe when the kids are older, I don't know how people get babysitters for New Year's Eve or any other big day like Super Bowl and things like that. I don't know how people get babysitters, mostly because I always use usually my sister or my dad. So maybe when they're a little older we'll be able to start doing something exciting on New Year's Eve, but for now we're happy to celebrate at home and just enjoy some champagne. And hopefully once I get all of my Christmas gift knitting done, I only have one more gift that I'm trying to finish. I will get some selfish knitting time in. Although I have recently signed several contracts for designs to be published in the fall and winter next year, which means they've got to be done sort of between late January and mid-March. So I've got a lot of work to do on designs that will not be seeing the light of day for nearly a year. So probably not as much selfish knitting as I was hoping for this holiday, but that's how it goes. So let's start talking about some actual knitting. Let's start with some on and off the needles because I actually have some stuff to show you. So I did finish 2 Christmas gifts. The first, last year I made my sister a brioche cowl with this yarn. So this year I made a matching hat, which ideally would have been done last year for her birthday, which was in January, but it wasn't. So the pattern is called Aparri, It's by Soldati. And it looks, you know, just kind of a basic brioche hat. You see it has a sort of square kind of shaping at the top. And the pattern gives you the option of doing either the reversible decreases or just regular, but I opted for the reversible, so the whole hat is reversible. So you can wear it either way. And it's this one's a pretty close fitting hat, so it's not like super slouchy or anything. I personally prefer it with the blue on the outside, but she likes pink, so I suspect she'll like it the other way. This is a DK weight yarn from Forbidden Fiber Company. I don't remember the names of the colorways. One of them I think is something like Hair Boss. I'm not sure. I will find out, and I will include that in the show notes. So there are definitely a couple of little mistakes in here. I'm not great at fixing mistakes in brioche, so oh well. So you can see like right here, there's just a little error on at least that side. But let's see. You know, it's only on that side. So if she decides to wear the pink side out, I don't think there are any errors here. Definitely learning to correct errors in brioche is something I should probably do. But as of yet, I've been just a little busy with some other stuff, so I haven't. So this was a really quick pattern, like I said. It's basically 2-color brioche, pretty simple all the way up to the crown decreases. And then if you really wanted to make it easier, you could definitely pick the non-reversible decreases. So that's for my sister. And then I finished another hat. This one is actually part of Indie Design Gift Along. This pattern is called My Favorite Weekend Hat. And this is also brioche. It's actually brioche alternated with rib, which gives it this sort of checkered pattern. And I was pretty careful, I think, carrying the unused yarn on the plain ribbing rows up the side. I mean, you can see a line there, but it's not, you know, it doesn't look outlandish. So he'll be able to wear this inside out as well. And this one doesn't really have any fancy decreases. It just has the decreases worked on the plain ribbing rounds. So that you don't have to worry about reversible decreases, which, you know, like anything in knitting, they're not hard. It's just that they're kind of fiddly. It's easy to kind of drop a stitch by accident, which I do think I did at some point, and I had to grab it afterward as I was weaving in the ends so it didn't unravel. And of course, this is a little big on me, but it will fit my husband very nicely, I think. And I just used for this, oof, that looks great. For this one, I used, the brown is Jill Draper Makes Stuff Kingston, I want to say, which is a DK weight. And the white is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Tweed that I just happened to have, that I thought would give it, you know, nice, inoffensive, manly colors. As I said, the pattern is called My Favorite Weekend Hat. The designer's name is Natasha Sills, and I will definitely include links in the show notes. But of course, I'm not worried about you know, trying to win prizes in the Indie Design Gift Along or anything. But I do like to take the Indie Design Gift Along as a time to support other designers. So I have finished one project for the Indie Design Gift Along. And then I have a couple of things on the needles. I started this hat for JJ. It is not going to be done in time for Christmas, but that's fine because children don't like clothing as a gift. But the designer is Sarah Jordan, PA Knitwit, and this is a fingering weight brioche hat, one color brioche with some decorative decreases at the top. This is the leftover yarn from my Ripple Bralette. There was plenty of this left, so it's these pretty autumny sort of colors. I think JJ will like. He complains a lot about the things that I knit him being itchy. So this is merino cashmere nylon. I figured that should be a good choice for we're not being itchy. The patterns is basically all brioche. I've just added at the bottom some twisted rib to sort of hold it onto his head better. He keeps losing all the hats I make for them, and I don't know if they're actually lost. I feel like if I went to his classroom and looked around, I could probably find most of them. But we'll see. They might be itchy even if he hadn't lost them, so this will be a new one for him. Hopefully by the time he heads back to school after Christmas. And like I said, this one is, you know, just all brioche up until you get to the crown decreases, so it's pretty simple knitting. Unfortunately, it is on very teeny tiny needles. These are US 1. When you're doing brioche, you usually want to go down a couple of needle sizes because it tends to be very loose stitch. So like, for example, this is worsted and DK weight yarn, but it's knit on US 4 needles. So I think as you get more experience with brioche, so I really only learned how to do it last year, your gauge tightens up a little bit and it's not as necessary. But these are teeny tiny needles, but it's a nice firm, firm fabric. So that is also for the Indie Design gift along. Like I said, hopefully it will actually be done by the end of the gift along. I definitely bought a fair number of patterns during the gift along that I really have no intention of starting, let alone finishing during the gift along, but it's a good time to support other designers, and that is still going on. The sale part, kicked off in November, and that part's over, but the knit along part and the contests and games and prizes, that is all going on until December 31st at midnight. So right through the end of the year. If you want to check that out, I will include a link in the show notes. And then the last thing that I have on the needles is that I started my framework bralette. So I am knitting this, the framework bralette is a DK weight pattern. I am knitting this in Swift Yarns, Swift DK, or it's called something like that. So I have finished the ribbing at the bottom, and I've started getting into the body of the bralette. I'm a little concerned that it's too busy, but it's hard to tell actually because this part of the pattern is knit inside out. Because what you're actually doing, you can flip it over, is creating, let's see, that would be the side. That's the front, okay. The cups in the front, which will have, this line of slip stitches up the center of them. So looking at it on this side, it still maybe looks a little busy, but I think maybe once it's washed and blocked, it'll be okay. It's a pretty simple, straightforward pattern so far. I still need to do, she gives you a whole lot of guidance on measuring for this. So I obviously did the first measurement to determine my size, but now I need to measure again to determine how long I want this portion of the body to be before I start sort of separating and breaking it into the triangle shapes at the top of the bralette. That is what I have on and off the needles this month. All right, I'm excited to share not one but two new patterns with you this month. They were both released earlier this month. So the super new one is the UNITA Hat. So this is sort of a riff on the Diego cardigan that I released earlier this year. It's using the same all over cables. And then it has this twisted motif in just one section. This is a little bit different than it is on the cardigan. I played with this a little bit more. Let's see. This is worked in still don't know how to say her name, Julie Aslan, I don't know. Nurtured yarn, which is a worsted weight. So this is a quick project. This is designed, well, I don't want to say it's a quick project. If you cable without a cable needle, which I highly recommend, you can fly through this pretty quickly. If you're new to cables, it's probably not going to be quick. But with the worsted weight yarn, that's definitely going to make things move a little more quickly. So this is designed to have sort of a loose, slouchy fit. You can see that it's not super tight at the bottom. In fact, it starts from a tubular cast on, so it has this nice, neat, tidy edge, and it's not like pulling in on your head, so hopefully you're going to avoid that sort of hat head. So it's supposed to be nice and slouchy. I generally wear sort of this part off to the side, but you can wear it however you like. You can see it has a nice slouchy fit at the back. This isn't super tight, so it's not gonna smush your hair down so much. It's nice and warm. This is a very warm yarn. It is I don't remember the exact breeds of the sheep, Rambouillet and Targhee maybe, but these are nice warm yarns, but it's not itchy at all either, although I do have a lot of hair, so take that with a grain of salt. I don't find it to be itchy on the head, at least. I do sometimes if I wear my Diego cardigan with short sleeves, that is a little bit itchy for me. Your mileage may vary. And then I got these faux fur pom poms. I actually got 4 of them. I seem to have misplaced one. From Leanne at Forbidden Fiber Company. Sent these over to me. She said she had them left over from something. So she sent me 4 of them to decide which I liked best for my hat. So I have 4. They look like tribbles. If you don't know what tribbles are, I can't help you. So the one I used in the pattern photos was this one, which is a nice white, but tipped with sort of a dark gray. But as I've been wearing it, I've been wearing it with this one. I can change them because these are interchangeable. So you sew a snap onto the top of the hat. And to be honest, it's a little off center. I'm not great at sewing. And then you can pop them on and off. I think that is brilliant. So you can change up your pom-poms. It also, most importantly, really, not that you need to be changing your pom-poms all the time, but it enables you to wash your hat without damaging your faux fur pom-pom. I don't know where Leanne got these. I don't think she is selling them in her shop, but definitely I've seen these in some other places, so keep an eye out. Yarn pom-poms are nice, but I think these are just a little bit more sophisticated. Maybe that's not the right word, but yarn pom-poms are a little bit more, I guess, childish and playful. These, I guess, maybe are just a little bit more grown up. So for something that's sort of these, muted colors and all these cables, I really like the look of the faux fur pom-pom. So this is the UNITA Hat. I had a little contest to help me name the hat. The Diego cardigan was inspired by a sweater worn by Diego Luna. See, I told you I was going to talk about him. So I got a lot of suggestions. A couple of people said Luna, which is his last name, but is also the Spanish word for moon. I thought that was just a little too on the nose, so I went with Lunita, which just means little moon. So UNITA Hat is available in my Ravelry shop, and I will include links in the show notes. All right, and pattern number 2 this month was the final version of the Bodie Island Shawl. which was the project for my annual Knot Mystery Knit Along. So if you had signed up for the Knot Mystery Knit Along, you may have been working on this since late October, but now the complete pattern is available for everybody. And you can see this shawl is knit outward from a center square and turns into a triangle. So this was definitely an experiment. I was really hoping it was going to work, and I did a lot of sketching and swatching to check, and ultimately it did, so I'm very thankful for. So you just start from the center out from a pinhole cast on and work this square design. The shawl uses a fingering weight yarn and a lace weight mohair. So you can see here the mohair nice and fluffy, and then it sort of plays with those two yarns. In some places I'm holding the yarns double. In some places I'm working, with one or the other. And then on the sort of wings of the triangle, here I'm carrying one yarn over the other. Here I'm using the two yarns like two color brioche. I switch them halfway through, which one is the main and which one is the contrast. And then at the end, it's just some texture holding both yarns together. And then the other wing is sort of the opposite. So here I'm carrying the fingering weight over the mohair. I'm alternated the way I did the brioche. And then on this side, this textured section is only in the fingering weight. And then all the way at the bottom, this is a two color, let's see, make sure you can see it. There we go. It's a two color slip stitch pattern. And then you pick up the trim all around all three sides. I've used a slip garter stitch pattern here. You could just use plain garter stitch if you wanted. All right, so this is super soft. It's got lots of halo because of the mohair. You could expand this design pretty easily by just making your center square bigger and then, picking up the wings from there. So it's pretty easy to adjust. And then you get to start from a fun square and ultimately come out with a triangle. So that is the Bodie Island shawl. I used Knot House Yarns Diamond Sock and Mauve Debonair, those two bases. That yarn is dyed by Heather up at the Knot House in Frederick. I don't know, you can buy it online and you can obviously buy it in the shop. I'm not sure if she is wholesaling it to anybody else yet. I know she's been doing some like trunk shows and things. So you may be able to find it around. You can also call the shop. They're so nice there. If you're looking for something specific and it's not up on their website, you can find that. You can call them and they will try their very best to help you out. So that was this year's Knot Mystery Knit Along project. That is all done. I think we did have a couple of people finish up their shawls during the knit along, so that's always nice to see. If you participated, you're not quite done yet. Still don't forget to tag me when you do get your shawl finished up so I can check it out. I also had lots of people volunteer to test knit the Lenita hat, so there are lots of finished projects for that on Ravelry if you want to check them out. And I will include links to both patterns in the show notes. All right, since I did so much shopping at Rhinebeck, I've really been trying not to buy too much yarn. But I do have a couple things to show you. Of course, I have continued to be part of the Fiber for the People Oxide Club. It's a 6-month club. And the option I signed up for was to get fingering weight yarn for the first 3 months and then DK weight yarn for the last 3 months. So in November, I got fingering weight yarn, and this was the color, and this is amazing. I don't know what this is going to become, but this is absolutely gorgeous. I'm just blown away by this. There's grays, oranges, browns, blacks, even like a little bit of blue in there. And this is intense, and I absolutely love it. Now I'm thinking, like, do I like this one as much as the first one or even more? This is absolutely gorgeous. Do I have that? Yeah. So this is the photo that she was working from. And I think that's pretty spot on. So I absolutely love this. So this was round 3 from November. And then this month was the first month I got a DK weight yarn. This is such a gorgeous neutral, like it's mostly this sort of sand beige color, but you've got, you know, little bits of brown and orange in there, speckled, of course. At first I was kind of bummed because I was like, this would have been perfect for my framework bralette. But actually the base is Blueface Leicester, which is maybe a little bit itchier than you want on your boobs. So in retrospect, I would not have wanted to use this for my framework bralette. And I'm kind of glad I didn't actually have it, because reason may have just flown out the window and I may have completely forgotten that Blueface Leicester is too itchy for your boobs, and I may have gone ahead and made it. I'm sorry, I may have gone ahead and made it with this and then realized my terrible error. So Blueface Leicester, it's not super itchy. It's still a soft yarn, but it's not necessarily yarn you want next to sensitive skin. So I probably wouldn't use it for something that goes around the neck, and definitely not something that goes on your boobs, but it'll be lovely for a hat or some mittens or something. So this, I love this beautiful speckly neutral, and this, the photo really creeps me out. I don't know, it's kind of creepy, but again, she just did like a spot on job with this. And I continue to be so impressed with her yarns. So very excited to see what the next 2 months bring. I'm really sad that we already got 4 out of 6 months. So things are kind of winding down. Of course, that's not to say that I couldn't, join whatever her next club might be. But again, I really don't need any more yarn. So it would not be a wise decision on my part. So I have those 2 new yarns, and then last weekend, Magpie Fibers had her holiday party, which I think she's done. This was the 2nd year, I think, maybe the 3rd. So she has a studio up in Frederick that is not a shop, but it is set up to be a shop when it needs to be, but it's not like a yarn store that's open 5 or 6 days a week. But she does have events there, so she had her holiday party. And first thing that I bought there actually was this candle. It smells so good. It's a little bit of a Christmassy scent. It's an exclusive scent for her. I don't know if it's on her website. I feel like she told me it's not, because it's so hard to ship. It smells so good. And the candle is done by Wax and Wool. All of their candles smell fantastic, but this just in particular just hits all the right notes that I look for in my candles. But then of course I bought some yarn. So I had been looking for a color combo for a fall sweater design that I have planned. Last year, I just, looking at, like, for example, my top 9 on Instagram, I did a lot of like yellow and gold, and which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it really dominated my year. So I'm going to try to tone things down a little bit in 2020. Not necessarily have a color scheme, but just trying to back away from the bright yellows and golds and such. Maybe go a little moodier. So I was looking for a 2-color combo for this sweater pattern that is, I don't want to say in the works, because I'm nowhere near starting it, but it will be coming up for the fall. It's one of the designs that I'm most excited for 2020. And I came across this combo. So this one is, I believe this is the colorway that she kind of dyed up by accident in the process of dyeing a new color for the holidays. She came up with sort of this accidental, this is just like a really deep blue. You can kind of see a little bit of a hint of silver in there. So this is called Follow You Into the Dark. It's just a very deep dark blue, almost black, not quite. And then this color is called Voices Carry. And this I'm a real sucker for. I have always loved the combination of blue and brown done correctly. So I love this. This is sort of a silvery gray blue with pops of brown and a dark blue that kind of matches this throughout. So I think this is going to be a great combination for that sweater, but I wanted to try it out first. So I grabbed these 2 skeins of DK weight because that's what the sweater pattern would be. And I'm going to try them out in some kind of accessory pattern. I don't know what it will be yet. These are 250 yards each, so 500 yards total. Could be a small shawlette, maybe a cowl. You know, I definitely want something that's going to use the bulk of the yarn. But if the combination works right, then I think this is going to be gorgeous for that sweater pattern that I have in mind for the fall. So that's just a little bit of stash flash for this month. All right, for Adelante this month, things have kind of wound down for 2019. Lenita was the last pattern that I'm releasing for 2019. Things are definitely getting started for 2020 though. I will have 3 designs at least in some of the fall and winter knitting magazines, and those all have to actually be done in the early part of the year. So I'm definitely going to be busy working on those. So the earliest part of the year might be a little bit slower for self-published stuff because I need to finish those things for third parties first, or at least they get the priority. But I am working on a pattern for 2020, January. And this, believe it or not, is a sweater. Let me get to the end of the row and then I'll be able to show you a little bit more about it. This sweater is being worked side to side. It's a cardigan and it starts from the middle of the back, which is an experiment. But so far, so good. So let's see. This is going to be a drop shoulder sweater. Right here is sort of like the center point of the back neck. And I finished one side. So this over here is the left side. And so now I'm working on the right side. And what I'm doing for this project is fading together 4 shades of Harrisville Designs Nightshades. So I started with the red. I think it's called Fever Dream, maybe? I will check. So I started with the red, and when the light is right, you can see how it transitions over here to a different color. This is the purple, which I do remember is called Talk Radio. So this starts at the center of the back with, it's really hard to show off yarn this dark, especially with this lousy phone camera. All right, so it starts with this, and these are 2 Vickle braids that are worked in opposite directions down the spine, and then it works outward from there. So I did one side, and now I'm working the other side. And then over here, when I got to the edge, I bound off. This is where the sleeve is gonna go. When I'm ready to work this side again, I'll cast on to cover this and work around to the front. And I'm going to keep fading the color. So I started with red and then faded into a purple. And then the purple is going to move into a dark blue. And the dark blue is going to move into a teal. And then I have to figure out how to fade the sleeves. I haven't quite worked all that out. But you can see it's worked mostly in garter stitch, with the exception of these sort of two braids that are down the center of the back. Get out of the way. So two braids that are right down the center of the back, right here. The rest of the sweater is mostly in garter stitch, worked side to side, but then I'm going to have some trim on the front. I want it to be an open front cardigan, but with no intentional gap in the front. So I want it to fully cover the front, and then if you wanted to do toggle buttons or something like that, or use a shawl pin to hold it closed, you could do that. But it's not going to have like button bands. It's going to have some kind of trim. I want to say something like I-cord down the fronts and around the neck. And then it will have sort of traditional rib trimming on the bottom hem and the sleeves. So this is in the works for late January, and that transitions us into news and notes, where I'm going to talk about a new project that I have been working on related to this cardigan design. All right, so if you subscribe to my channel on YouTube, you will perhaps have seen this already, but I've started a new series of vlogs on my YouTube channel called Knitting Design Studio. The intention behind this is to really go behind the scenes more in depth, showing how a pattern is created. This was partially inspired by the series that I did, blog series that I did earlier in the summer, Knit Design in Time, where I talked about how long it took me to create the sound side pattern. And it's also partially inspired by Fiber for the People's dyeing vlogs over on her YouTube channel, where she shows you how she makes these amazing colors. So as opposed to the podcast, which usually runs 40 to 50 minutes, these are shorter vlogs, 10-15 minutes, that I'm going to be trying to post every week or 2 weeks, really showing you how we get from a sketch or maybe a swatch or a stitch pattern or a chart to a final finished pattern and sample. I just posted the second vlog on Friday, so last week. I have no idea how many vlogs are going to end up being in it. So the whole series is going to be called Knitting Design Studio, and then I'm going to be focusing on a specific pattern that I'm developing for, however many vlogs. So the first one is the sweater that I just showed you, which is called Humo Amargo, which means bitter smoke. So that's going to be the focus of the first series of these vlogs, Knitting Design Studio vlogs. As I said, they're going to be 10 or 15 minutes, and they're much less structured. I was going to say formal, but this is not formal, but it is sort of structured. I try to have functional segments and, break things down into different areas that might be of interest to different people, but this is going to be specifically about pattern design and really sort of getting behind the scenes into the nitty-gritty. So the first vlog of the series, I started off showing my sketch for the cardigan, the yarn, talked about swatching, and then in the second vlog, I revisited the swatching a little bit and then started into the grading for the sweater. So both the first the first two vlogs are about 15 minutes. I'm just sort of recording them, if I'm working on it. I'm obviously not going to record every single minute of everything I do with this sweater. Nobody wants to see that. But if I'm, need to go back and fix something in the grading, or I need to do another section of the grading, or I'm, facing a particular problem with the sample, I try to just pop my phone camera on and record for 5 or 10 minutes, and then I put 3 or 4 of those videos together and edit until I get somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes worth of video, and then I can pop up a new vlog for the series. So I hope you will check that out. While the podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and all that, the vlogs are only going to be on my YouTube channel. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, then that is the best way to get notified when new stuff is available over there. And like I said, I'm trying to post a new one every week or 2 weeks. I am planning to focus more attention to my YouTube channel in 2020. And the idea there is that I'm going to be hopefully sharing new content every week. So the idea is 1 week, a new episode of the podcast, 1 week, a new tutorial, 1 week, a new vlog, and then the 4th week, I'm going to try to go up to 2 episodes of the podcast in 2020. I might not do it right away. I might sort of slowly transition into that. I do currently do a second bonus episode of the podcast every month for my Patreon patrons. But I have a very small number of patrons, and it's a lot of work to create the content, and I think it's going to work better if I shift that energy into creating something that is accessible to everyone, and maybe come up with some different perks for my Patreon patrons. So like I said, we'll see how that goes. So that is news and note number 1, new vlog series on the YouTube channel, and hopefully more YouTube content coming in 2020. All right, thank you so much for joining me for episode 12 of the Hilo Stitch podcast. You can find complete show notes with links to everything that I've talked about on my website at mediaperuana.com/Hilo-Stitch. Special thank you to my Patreon patrons who are helping to keep this podcast going and to keep all aspects of my business going. So if you are interested in supporting the podcast and Media Peruana Designs and getting some perks and free patterns and other goodies, you can find more information at patreon.com/mediaperuana. If you are looking for me on social media, you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram and Facebook, and I'm not using that so much, but on pretty much everywhere as Media Peruana. If you are watching the show on YouTube, thank you so much. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe. All of those good things will help expand the reach of the podcast. And you can find past and future episodes of the Hilo Stitch podcast on YouTube, as well as Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcatcher. And I will see you next time.